All right, we're going live. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. All right, everybody. It is Wednesday, not Thursday. We usually do this on Thursdays, but tonight is a special edition of the garden party. And this is the first time I'm ever doing the introduction on a ukulele. This is the garden party, and we want a garden party with you. We talk about the plants we grow and some things you might not know. The garden party. All right, Phil, introduce yourself, dude.
What up, everybody? It's your favorite co-host, Phil from Phil's Figs, your favorite plant parent and regular parent, back on the podcast.
Fantastic to have you, Phil. Hey, the ukulele is a lot. So I have little sausage fingers. And I've been playing guitar my whole life, trying to play guitar, and I see all my friends doing bar chords and stuff, and I got fat little Vienna sausages, and they can't do it.
I know, they're all like, here's slightly stupid. You're like, wait.
Yeah, so I thought I'll get a ukulele, and I'll be like Phil, I'll be chilling. And now I'm thinking my fingers are too fat for the ukulele, so we will see how that goes. I mean, but thank you as always for coming on.
You did great.
We got a fig-tastic episode. Returning for a second episode is Mr. Brian Melton with ProFig. Go and introduce yourself, dude, and let everybody know where you're coming from.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Melton, owner of ProFig here in Fresno, California, and I'm very excited to be on tonight's episode. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, man. It's been very fig heavy.
Yeah.
We're okay with that.
You can tell who's booking the episodes if it's super fig heavy. No, I love figs too, man. I really appreciate y'all coming on. It's always fun to talk figs. And if y'all have any fig questions, make sure to drop them down in the comment section. And we also have a first-time guest, Mr. Ross Raddi, the fig boss. Introduce yourself, dude. Let everybody. I'm sure everybody in the chat already knows who you are.
Legend in the fig world.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm Ross, the fig boss. If you guys are not familiar with my work, I have a YouTube channel, just Ross Raddi, and also I have a blog, figboss.com. By the way, Destin, I just came here late, by the way. Just brewed myself some coffee, and I am just shocked because I have never talked to Destin one time ever, other than on Instagram. And then he's just singing me a song, like right off the bat. That was amazing.
Well, I always like to start it off with a little humility. I'm not the best guitar player. I'm not the best singer, but I feel like it's always a fun time getting the podcast started off. We've thought about pre-recording it, but I think it's just more fun to do it live. And I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Yeah, no problem. Good to be here. I love you guys. Brian's the best, by the way. Phil, he makes great videos, unbelievable fig videos.
Oh,
Brian
thanks, man.
He is a pro. Pro fig. He literally
He's legit a pro.
Trust me, I got to give credit to my wife too. She's helped me. So,
dude,
it's a daily. You guys know it's a daily. So.
Yeah, no, the person who's picking figs every day is my wife. That's the person going and checking them. She stays on top of it because she loves making that jelly. We're gonna try to make some wine this year. We're harvesting so many figs right now. It's insane in Texas right now.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's crazy. It's all Breba's, I assume.
Yeah.
I'm
not harvesting, so we get this weird gap right between the Breva season and the main crop, where I've got everybody bugging me daily, like, "Where's the figs? Come on, where's the figs?" And everything's green. It's like nothing's as ripe. It's 105, but it's still nothing's ripe yet, except the Brevas, but they're finished. So yeah, this is perfect timing for the podcast because this is our slowest time right now.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Bring in the hype.
I find that's such a different variety in all the varieties of figs at like the time of ripeness. I noticed there's some varieties that don't produce as much for the Breva, but produce a huge fall crop. And then vice versa. And then some are like really early, like the O'Rourke has not stopped putting out figs for me since like late March, or late April. It's just been nonstop putting out figs. I'm picking like probably 2 to 3 dozen O'Rourke figs a week.
I've never had a O'Rourke Breva. How do they compare to the main crop?
The Breba is never as good as the fall crop. I would say
Right.
like it's especially like sugar content, they're not as sweet as the
Right.
fall ones. I feel like they're a little more dull. But there's no bad figs. I mean, unless you got one that's full of something spire ants or sugar ants. We get the crazy ants in ours sometimes, and that's why I soak them. I put them in a jar, fill it with water, and any like little creepy crawlers that might be inside the eye, the osteo will kind of pop out. But no, there's no such thing as a bad fig, in my opinion.
No.
All figs are good, but there are lots of figs that are great. I actually had my first Breva that actually like floored me because like I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina, and like I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, by Bill from Off the Beaten Path. Yeah, I was born in Conshohocken and then moved out to Brea in Lancaster.
Wow.
So I used to sneak into the city. My parents love like Cropolis and get tomato pie over in Norristown area and stuff. But
nice.
But I came down here for grad school and I was like, oh, I'm never leaving this place. And then I can put trees in the ground quite easy here. But the Breva crop here has struggled just because the Aprils, we get those temperatures that they can be a little volatile and capricious and you don't know what you're going to get. And I picked up a Regato de Salento from Dan Foster, and that Breva was phenomenal. And it was on a reverted branch actually. And it was just like, it was fun to have like I know it reverted, but a variegated fig that tastes like a ball of honey. That was pretty rad.
So Dustin, where are you located, by the way, in Texas?
I'm just south of Houston, about 40 minutes south of Houston. So I'm in 9B.
So it's quite humid there.
Oh, it's super humid, dude.
Yeah.
It's super humid. We're starting to get in the triple digits. So we're getting that first round of leaf loss. Start to shed a bunch of leaves. And then in about a month, they'll all start growing new ones. Around the time that most of like my Breva crops are ripening, I'm starting to, you'll start getting those copper color leaves, and they'll drop, and then they produce new leaves, and then here comes the fall crop. So
is there anything you can do for rust? Like, do you just deal with it? Is there varieties that are resistant? Because I get this question all the time. People want to know, of course, how to prevent it, which I think is rather difficult. But if you had a variety that actually could resist it and not really get it that bad, is that possible? Have you seen a difference?
I have seen certain varieties of figs be more rust resilient. I feel like the Chicago Hardy is a little more rust resilient and doesn't get as bad at rust. But I'm along the lines of the Joel Salatin method, where like let the pigginess of the pig with the figginess of the fig. I don't really do any copper fungicide or anything like that for my figs. I kind of just let them drop, and it's not like I'm losing leaves and they die out. They just lose their leaves and they come right back. I mean,
right.
I actually had a talk with Anthony, the millennial gardener, because he lives about 20 minutes from me, and he thinks that by introducing shade cloth, that you can lessen the solar intensity, and you're not going to stop fig rust, like the spores and fungal spores, from necessarily getting on the fig leaves, but you make the trees and leaves themselves more resilient and stronger, and kind of can fight it off a little bit better. And he noticed like a great reduction in fig rust from happening, but on his shaded fig trees. That's his take, and I'm going to try that this year in a portion of my trees. But I got hit pretty hard in another section come August here when the humidity is just banging your trees pretty good.
I wonder if that's not due to the shade, but actually due to the dew in the morning actually settling on the shade cloth rather than the leaves themselves. The sun, if anything, is going to make the plant stronger, have a better immune system, and that's going to be able to fight that rust better than not having the sun. So I think
the solar activity hitting the rust and keeping it from actually forming, but like keeping the moisture out of there off the leaves to actually, I can see what you say with that.
Right.
Well, I was gonna say all my stuff is on a micro sprinkler system too, so I'm not overhead watering any of my figs. So I probably don't get it as bad as some people doing it as that's the micro sprinkler system. If I was overhead watering them a lot, I could see how it would probably be worse than what it is.
Yeah, I know a lot of people down in Florida, especially southern Florida, really struggle with rust, and their trees look so bad. and it just feels so bad for them because you want those leaves to produce that photosynthesis, that carbohydrates, and if you constantly losing your leaves, it's like a battle that you can never kind of recover from. But you say, Destin, that they regrow, which is good. Now, do you prune them? Because I know that Brian over in California, he prunes his trees after they fruit, and then they resprout, they put out a lot of branches, and then he gets a whole different second crop of figs.
Yeah, so I probably don't prune mine as much as Brian. I know his stuff is really closely spaced together. That's one of the other reasons why he's pruning so much, because he has to maintain like a walking space. But I typically am only pruning mine if a limb smacks me in the face when I'm mowing, or if I'm propagating. That's about the only time I really do much pruning. I typically like just leave it alone until before we get our first freeze. And that's when I'm pruning. That's when I'm pruning just specifically for propagations. And I don't know if my entire backyard is containers and raised beds, so everything is in containers for the most part. I don't have like a big space to kind of let them get crazy. So I kind of have to do a little bit of pruning here or there, but nothing crazy like Brian does. I mean, Brian, do you have? I know it's a little drier. Would you say it's a little drier where you're at?
Yeah, it's very, very dry. It's like it's the opposite. We don't get any humidity really, so we don't get any rust. I don't have to deal with that. And then as far as taking those cuttings right after those fig trees are done fruiting, they always stall out, right? They take this big breather, and they usually will stay stagnant for a few months, and then they'll put out a flush of growth in fall when it cools down. But if you prune them right after they fruit, you get all that lignified wood. Man, it's free cuttings. You do it, because it's going to grow back, and it grows back, and sometimes you'll get a late crop of figs too. So it's kind of tricking the plant. And
how late is late for you? Are you talking like December into January? Or are you talking like November, December?
November, December.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Now, Rob talked about rejuvenating pruning, right? Like,
I've utilized that for sure.
I use it all the time, but there's still a lot of refining to it because some varieties do not like to be pruned hard, and some varieties love to be pruned hard. And it's finding those varieties, which is key to how you're going to calculate your orchard, right? Like what you're going to grow and maximize your space. Because for me, I need to maximize cuttings and maximize fruit because I sell both. So that finding that type of trait is what I'm after.
Yeah.
So Brian, what are those varieties, by the way, that don't like to be pruned? Because I literally got that question yesterday, and I can only really come up with Smith, Colonel Lippmann's Black Cross, and then Borges Oak Reese, and it's like synonyms.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the French varieties are like that. A lot of the varieties that it came from cool, wet, rainy climate, they just don't respond that well being cut back hard every year. So that's been kind of a trend that I've noticed. A lot of the Montserrat Pons varieties love to be cut back hard from the Balearic Islands. Like they love to be pruned back hard. Now his climate's similar to mine, and I know like a lot of the standard figs out there on the market, the brown turkeys and stuff, you could prune those hard. They come back gangbusters. But some of these, these, I don't know, maybe it's the load of the amount of FMV virus that's in them, but that's something to look into too, because fig mosaic virus definitely slows down the process of rebounding from being cut back. But that's kind of what I'm looking at. But it's a lot of the rainy climate figs that don't do well cut back, and actually don't do that well here in general. They just don't flourish as well as other varieties that are from the Mediterranean.
So like your Dalmaties or like Nordland type figs, or when you talk about like cooler climates?
Like they actually do okay. They're just big figs, but they're just not real productive. They're productive for the average homeowner, but we're looking for more than that, But the like Stella Dalmati, they're just, I have 4 or 5 that are probably synonyms, and they grow big and robust, but they just aren't big producers.
That's why I love them. I just love that you fit in the whole palm of your hand. You get that nice Adriatic color, and you're like, this is the coolest thing ever. But yeah, they're more like Christmas ornaments versus like having a big crop of figs.
Right.
I've got a question in the chat, and I want to make sure I shout this out in the beginning of the podcast. People are asking where can they buy fig trees. So Phil's got his website, philsfigs.com. Brian Melton, profigusa.com, and also figbid.com. Y'all both have stuff on there as well. Ross, do you sell figs or fig trees? I won't leave you out.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't sell the actual fruit itself. I might experiment this year locally. Been asking, a lot of people have been asking me, but yeah, figboss.com is where I sell a bunch of trees. Actually, starting in July, I'm going to have a really wide selection of trees. I did all my rooting this year, actually, in the spring. So a lot of my inventory is coming up.
That's good.
Nice.
But I will mention,
Ross.
what's up?
Go ahead.
How has it been with the greenhouse space that you've been working with?
So interesting about that. This year, I didn't put the trees in there. I only did everything actually for seed, only the seeds in there. And I think it was just a lot of work. My life was just in like disarray, tax season, all that stuff. But I also this year got really into landscape design. I haven't really talked about this much at all with anybody, but I have a whole new property. You could see the wall behind me that I have access to. I'm going to leave it at that. But in the front of the yard is basically just landscape. No fruiting plants, no garden. The back is an orchard. Put a whole bunch of fig trees back there, apples, pears, all kinds of stuff. It's looking pretty good, other than the deer that keeps coming back there. But the front, I just got totally obsessed with landscape design. Learned so much about other perennials. So, the problem with the fig trees, I'm not getting any fruit right now because I didn't have any greenhouse head start whatsoever this year. But normally, I would be getting fruit for like the last month, maybe even more than that with the help of the greenhouse. And if you are going to grow in a greenhouse, it is a huge benefit to grow fig trees in a greenhouse. I mean, there's like really nothing. I totally wish I could grow every fig tree I had underneath plastic under a greenhouse, especially ones that are in the ground. The container ones are a little bit difficult because this is the biggest tip I've learned. If you go too hot early on in the season, the trees get triggered into fruiting earlier. If you let them cool off for the beginning part of the season, maybe the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then ramp up that heat, they're going to grow a lot more. Then the fruits are going to get triggered. That heat unit requirement to set the fruit buds will be there, and then you'll actually have a really successful, productive harvest that way.
Right on.
Yeah, I sell fig trees locally, just here in my area, and I have kind of gotten to where like I only sell the varieties that I keep out. I only want to sell the varieties in my area that I know can be used and abused, because nobody's going to take as good a care of their figs as me. So for me, I'm going to sell the varieties that I don't bring in during the winter time. I can let them be drought tolerant, let them get full sun. I don't put them under the shade cloth, because if I sell them to somebody, I want them to know they can put that tree anywhere in their yard and it's going to thrive and it'll come back. I've had trees, varieties here that have died during the freeze and didn't come back. I don't grow that variety anymore because I don't want to sell someone a variety that doesn't do well in my area. That's just because I'm a local seller right now. I haven't gotten to where I'm doing the online thing or anything like that, to where I'm sort of limited on space, But usually my greenhouse is full of like tropicals. I'm a plant hoarder, and so
you're
my
a good company. I think plant hoarding is, if you're an official nursery, you're not plant hoarding.
Correct. And I am legally a nursery by the Texas Department of Agriculture. I did the math the other day, and I have 31 desert roses. I didn't realize I had accumulated that many in less than a year. I feel like I've always been into figs. I'll never stop growing figs, but every year I get into something, a new thing. And last year was desert roses and plumerias. And now I've got a hoarder amount of desert roses and plumerias. I don't know what to do with them. I don't know what to do with them. But that's what fills my greenhouse.
Phil, what about you? Do you grow any figs in there in that greenhouse, or is it just for like propagation?
It gets just for propagation. It's a Harbor Freight, and I've like milked it. I really did the engineering, and I tamped the crap out of the base, and I put in gravel to countersink the frame, but it gets too hot for me. So I only get half the day it gets shade, and the other half I've been clocking it at like 111 in there, even with all the vents and door open, and I don't want to crank a fan all day. So the things that are in there are all my succulents that can handle it. And then like I have a night blooming cirrus that's growing just fine in there. And then I move all the figs out, and then I play this fun little like follow the shade path with all my hundreds of fig trees around the property. Because it's not until like the afternoon I really start getting where you see my micro orchard there that I really just start cranking on the heat on there. And my coledodoms are up against the greenhouse on that far side.
Yep.
And until I mulched it, they were really taking the heat. Not great, because we've had a dry spell. Usually we get that 4 p.m. thunderstorm that comes off and shoots off into the ocean. And it's my propagation station in the winter. That's about it.
Yeah, we got to get you a bigger greenhouse, I think.
Well, or Phil, at least maybe it gets you like a hoop house, like a taller hoop house. That you get, like,
I'm looking into it. I found a guy that builds frames, and then I have a 30 by 40 foot polyethylene cover that I've doubled down in the wintertime for that greenhouse on, that I could probably stretch under those hoops, but I got to do the math on how big I can go in my property.
Oh, I was going to say just to put a shade cloth over, just to give you a little bit of break in the sun, because right now my greenhouse here in Texas, I only need a greenhouse for like 3 months out of the year. The rest of the time, the plastic comes off so I can save it from getting destroyed by UV rays and stuff, and it'd be too hot anyway. And then about a month later, I cover it with a 50% shade cloth, and so everything like my tomatoes that stop producing when it gets in the high 90s, I put under there, and it gets a little bit of a break. So maybe try something, maybe just like a little hoop house.
I am always up for that. I mean, I'm a little earlier in on the journey than you guys with the fig world and diving into it from a professional standpoint. And so like my thing is I'm just like testing what I'm getting away with still, and like I'm even testing what I can propagate with. Like right now, I took cuttings I forgot about like months. And then my wife is so nice to let me keep the crisper drawer all winter for all my cuttings. And we got to the point like, come on, are you going to use these? And I was like, I don't know. Threw them in the garage. 2 months in the garage. Ignored them. They're Celeste, so take it with a grain of salt. And I picked out like about 80% of them were still viable, and another 80% of those took. And I put them in old dirt, like there's got to be all kinds of great diseases in there. But I left them outside, let the rain hit them, and put them in the canopy. And like those are taking off. So like I'm just playing with what I got right now. And I was able to propagate outside in this weather with old cuttings. So the greenhouse can I'm trying to propagate succulents in there, but I might invest in some shade cloth if I can get away with doing that with cuttings all summer long.
Dude, it's very affordable, and you can go on Amazon and get like custom sizes, like with the grommets and everything on them. Like and they last quite a while. They last quite a bit. I would highly encourage it. Bob Miller said he got some cuttings from you, the Emerald Strawberry and the Ronde de Bordeaux, Ross, and he said they're in beast mode right now.
Very good. That's awesome. Yeah, that Ronde Bordeaux is seriously one of the most productive varieties. It's crazy how many figs that tree produces.
And cold hardy, right?
You know, it's not that cold hardy for me. I think it just grows so quickly. It's in like this state of balance where it likes to grow and fruit at the same time. It doesn't slow down. It just keeps growing and keeps fruiting. And then by the time the frost comes, it's not really well lignified, and it actually takes a bit of winter damage. But the thing is, you can keep pruning that thing and it still fruits. You know, I don't have many other trees that you can do that to. This year, I think that Ronde Bordeaux is going to produce about 500 figs. And the tree is only, I'm telling you, the tree right now is only about 7 or 8 feet wide by 6 feet tall. And that's 500 figs right now.
You're getting 500 figs, man. And they're good.
It's absurd. Going back to what Brian said about pruning them after they fruit, I talked about this on my YouTube channel, I don't know, about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, just pinching off the tips. Brian is unfortunate in some ways. He has the best climate, but he doesn't have that soil moisture that the rest of us have, because we get that moisture and the figs just keep growing. You know, Brian's at a certain point, they just stop and that's it.
Yeah.
So we can take advantage of that. We remove the tips on the really fast growing shoots. They're already fruiting. And then you can observe the leaves on those branches that are really, really big, like the ones the size of your head. You know that branch is perfect for pinching. You pinch off the tip, all the fruits that are already formed on the branch, they're going to fruit pretty early. Then you're going to get a second flush of growth. It's going to form new, 3 or 4 new fruiting branches. Then you get fruits on those. And for me, that ends up ripening Ronde Bordeaux 2 different crops. This guy's taking a picture.
Whoa. Well, so wait, that's your indicator when you see like healthy huge leaf growth. Like that's when you're like, okay, this branch is viable for proliferating.
Yeah, man, it's literally it. Because the thing is with the leaves, the tree knows when there's sunlight, and they're going to take advantage of that. So either they're going to branch out in all these different directions, and if there only is one branch there, they're going to just naturally grow bigger leaves, and you'll see those larger leaves. If you have a really dense canopy, a lot of branches, the leaves are naturally going to be smaller. So if you have one branch off on its own, like on an island, just remove the tip. That thing is going to easily form 3 or 4 new fruiting branches. And I get, like I said, my green Michurinska last year got 3 crops of figs. This year it's going to do the same thing. My Moro de Caneva is going to do the same thing. And you end up getting, that second crop that could potentially avoid all that rain too. You never know when the rain's going to come in. We had a worst. I mean, it hasn't rained at all here. I don't know about you, Phil, but it hasn't rained at all. But certainly last September was like the worst September on record. And I feel bad for everybody that got stuck ripening all their figs in that perfect fig season that we normally have. And if you don't have late varieties, or you don't have, that technique I just mentioned of reverse pruning or pinching the trees, you're like missing out on this crop that could be in totally dry weather.
Oh, that's rough, man. Yeah, it's been exceptionally dry here. We're just starting to get we get the 4 p.m. kind of like if you're in Florida, we get like the 4 p.m. thunderstorm every day in the summer until about Labor Day. And then what I like about here, which I don't tell people, like the humidity is bad, but the late varieties, our humidity cooks off by October, and then we can actually handle those late, like all the coldadams are actually doing great here, but not until October and November. And even when the trees are losing the leaves, and like we still get enough heat that I try to like tout that, like, yeah, we have bad humidity, and if anything's ripening, then like I had to give up on my Violet de Soleil here in the ground. I put it in a pot to control it better, but after that humidity burns off, those late ripeners were warm enough in the fall to get those. Our biggest risk for figs is in the spring.
Yeah, it's either July, August, or usually even after frost sometimes. I mean, September can be like the worst time of the year. August can be the worst time of the year. You may get 3 or 4 weeks where it's like terrible figs.
Right.
So,
the weirdest tasting fig I ever ate was after a frost. It's so mild down here in Texas. We actually had a little bit of a freeze, and the figs still ripened afterwards, but they definitely tasted freezer burnt. It was like you dropped it's like you dropped the fig in the freezer and left it there and found it like a year later. It tasted so weird, but yeah, it was weird. I
always wonder. I was about to ask if it's kind of like, because I've had a freeze here and I had a Genovese Nero that tasted fine afterwards, but it wasn't. I guess it wasn't bad enough to freeze, but it was like I think of like ice wine when people try to use those grapes where it like literally like condenses the sugars and stuff. But I guess not. It's
Hey, do any of y'all ship to Canada?
I do not.
Or can you? Can you ship to Canada? I got someone from British Columbia asking.
I just refer them to RK figs usually.
I've shipped to Canada many times, but I think that Canada, they're concerned about a snail. They're not very concerned with ficus cuttings. I've never had an issue.
Oh, okay. Huh. Yeah. So Ross, you sell them you can sell to Canada. And then who was the other one, Phil? You said RK Figs or whatever. If you're in BC, go go to profigusa.com. You can probably get them there. They're asking about the Ronde Bordeaux.
I can arrange it. It's no problem.
Nice. That way.
Cool.
I can arrange it. Okay.
We'll meet you.
Let me check with the consigliere. Oh, I can make it work.
Meet you at the border of like in Vancouver. Just toss a fig over the line.
There you go. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Let's see. Eric, Crooked Tail Family Farm. Most underrated figs. Do y'all have a fig variety that everybody else kind of thinks is like kind of meh, but you really like?
I don't know if people try it or not. I love it. I'm partial to it, but it's Salce. I think it's an awesome fig.
It's good, man.
It's really good.
Agree.
Yeah. And oh my gosh. It's just the guy, I guess Saxon Fig promoted it through a guy he knew as Mario and in Kentucky. Yep. And he also had like Achano, which looks like Asiano, and then a Troyano Calabrese, which is both are I had, and then I actually lost mine and got another Achano, but I really like Salce. I think it's a really complex fig. I think it has nice, like you have your sugar notes, but you also have fruit notes like peaches and things in it. And it's got this beautiful multicolored skin. And the story behind it's beautiful. They saved the other figs for the pigs and they kept this one for the family. And so I think it's an awesome fig. I think that's totally underrated.
No, I agree. 100%. I had my first one last year. I thought it was great. I want to know what Brian thinks though, because Brian, I'm sure he, I don't know, he probably has very different opinions just where he lives. But he's tried
all those figs you guys mentioned, and I dumped all of them because they split much here.
Yeah.
Wasn't that from 10 years ago? From
Figs for Fun, man.
Like 10
Figs for Fun, man.
Yep.
Like
10 years ago.
Yeah, and I. But you know what? Back then, I wasn't as good at growing figs as I am now. But maybe maybe I got rid of them too soon. But you know, like I did a video the other day. Is I was eating some black missions that they were shriveling on the tree, and they were just so dang good, man. Like even like my kids, everybody was mowing them down. They were Brebas.
You don't have to rub it in, Brian.
Well, it's so funny for a lot of people. That's their first, kind of fig they grow. I didn't get a black mission fig until last year. I bought a cutting from like some nursery. They had a big giant black mission fig tree, and I was like, I don't have one of these. Can I buy like a 6-foot cutting off one of these limbs and buy it from you? And they sold it to me, and so I actually got my first black mission fig the other day, and it was freaking delicious, man. Yeah. But I would say most people who are trying figs and most people that have tried figs and not liked figs, it wasn't ripe enough. Mm-hmm. It wasn't ripe enough.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I will say, I still think that Celeste is underrated too. Like if I ever run around here in Wilmington, you take it and run with it.
No. Go ahead. I want to hear it.
Because they're all over here in Wilmington. Like people just have them growing. They're like, I don't know if it's a brown turkey or a Celeste, and it's like kind of a dead giveaway. And you're like, oh, it's a Celeste, and they just kill it in humidity. They just do so well comparatively, and it's like they're like super brown sugary candy like off the tree, and you can get like the monster tree right here next to my house. Like you can't beat it, and they ripen early. So. But yeah,
I agree. I think for humidity, it is the standard. I'll say this because LSU, Louisiana State University, as probably most of you guys are aware, they had a breeding program in the 1950s to try to improve Celeste. And I know there's a lot of Louisiana people probably watching right now, and they're all so proud of LSU, but they did not succeed. They did not. They did not improve Celeste. There's a variety called Improved Celeste. There isn't a better Celeste. It's called actually, it's a mutation of Celeste. Wasn't bred by LSU. It's called Black Celeste, and it's
Black Celeste.
Definitely a better tasting, by far better tasting Celeste, and it actually has a really short hang time. It ripens on the tree in like 2 days, 3 days. It's shriveled on the tree, which is unheard of for our climate. It's pretty crazy. Now Brian, where he lives, so hot, the figs ripen like that. So here, I could have a fig on the tree, I'm telling you, that could be on the tree for 10 days and doesn't get dried and shriveled. So the fact that Celeste can do that in 2 or 3 days on average is incredible. But yeah, so I could talk about Celeste probably for 40 minutes.
Let's keep going.
But
we got time.
I'll say this: Smith, unbelievably difficult to beat in like any climate. You can put it up against any fig. Violet de Bordeaux, pretty much unbeatable in almost every climate. And the reason for that is because of the Breba. The Breba is so darn good, and I think most people just don't pay enough attention to the Breba crop. It's also extremely productive. Then you also have Desert King, same thing. I think that's an underrated fig. Most collectors, people like you, like all four of us, have hundreds of varieties of figs. Who cares about Desert King, right? But I now have just started growing like 4 or 5 different strains of Desert King to see which one could actually survive out in my Zone 7 climate and actually produce a Breba crop.
Why 4 or 5 strains, and what are you looking for in these strains? Like, are they just different sources, or?
It sounds like.
Well, so they're all going to be slightly different than each other. Now, you talk to someone like Brian here, I'm sure he's going to chime in and he's going to say, they're pretty close. There's not really that much observable differences. Maybe there isn't. I think if you do a genetic test, we may find no differences. Maybe it's just all in our imagination. The variables, the differences from one year to the next is, it's crazy how different these figs can be. One fig on the tree, just in the next fig, could be so different. So it's really difficult to, I think,
there's so
observe
many
this. Yeah. But, I think at the end of the day, like if I wasn't trialing 15 different Celeste figs, I didn't find Black Celeste, or the One is another strain and source of Celeste that is definitely an improvement of regular Celeste, because it also has a really short hang time. Like I said, it turns into a dried, shriveled fig right on the tree in such a short period of time. Where my other Celeste figs, they're dried and shriveled in 4, 5, or even 7 days. And that's pretty normal or typical. And if you can just get them perfect on the tree, this is why it's so important here in our humid places, is that you get them dried on the tree, perfect. You can pick them before the rain comes in. Why let them just hang out in the rain and get destroyed and risk that? So yeah, I think there's a big difference. Desert King is definitely one of them. And you know what? I think for places like California, what do you think, Brian? Like, there's got to be, of course, Black Madeira is so popular. Of course, the Col de Doms are popular. If you're not aware of those two figs, you got to be in those places.
Yeah.
But there's got to be one that, because people ask me all the time, like, what do you recommend growing in California or West Texas or Arizona? And I always say those two figs, but I'm sure there's something out there that's like mind-blowing. Unknown Pastilier.
Right out front, right out my window right here. It's gigantic. And it's going to be ripening probably next week. And what's crazy is the first batch, they are sweet. They taste like sweet, figgy cherry flavor.
Ooh.
After that batch, that first run of the very first ripening figs, they get that little bit of tart cherry flavor. And that's kind of how they roll for the next 2 months. And when you talk about the hang time, very similar to Celeste. They turn purple, and then a few days later, they are absolutely ripe. So,
which variety was this again?
Unknown Pastilier.
Got it.
Unknown Pastilier requires the fig wasp. And just so a lot of people know, the fig wasp is only in certain areas of California, little pockets. So we have a huge population here. I also bring in additional Profici to help pollinate some of our trees. But if you live in the area with the fig wasp, it's a must-have fig because it's so early too. It's the first.
Oh, it is.
So, so it's highly recommended if you have the fig wasp, Unknown Pastilier.
Hey, Brian, how much earlier is it than other figs?
Maybe a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they all ripen rather quickly, or is it just like one and then like a couple days later?
Well, the way I prune them, whenever like we talk about rejuvenation pruning and I call it just hard pruning, right? Where I remove most of the growth. When you do that, you're going to get a long season, right? You're extending that season. Right. You're getting, so that's kind of what I have going on out here. Last year it was just a huge bush. I didn't prune it that hard, and they ripened it about a month and a half to 2 month period. Right. And people would try them. They come pick up their figs here, they try them, and they're absolutely hooked for life. Like, they are mind blown. They pick them right from the tree out here. Come try it. And it is a cherry flavor. It is just bizarre. It's
I like that, though.
I mean, I love Black Madeira. That's probably my number 2, but they're 2 different types of figs.
Like,
But yeah, if this whole thing with hand pollinating, man, if you could just get a nice unknown pastilier, it'll be worth it spending that time pollinating.
Yeah, I have 2 of them just for that purpose. I bought some cuttings, I think, last winter. Got 2 trees now. Hopefully, some of my male figs are going to actually have pollen inside of them, and I'll actually get to hand pollinate those figs this year myself, my own trees. That'd be great.
That'd be really great.
I did a video last year of a Breba crop on unknown pastilier. I had Brebas again this year.
No kidding.
It's a light crop, but you cut it open, and it's a little bit hollow in the center, and it's not real juicy, but it's got that cherry cinnamon flavor, and it's edible. It's not great. It's not great, but it's supposed to be a Perna, right? Like you're not supposed to get you're not supposed to get a Breba crop.
Right.
So
it must be a San Pedro then.
It's got to be. It's got to be. And so
MD.
we've heard of people ripening them in other countries without the fig wasp. A few people have claimed that's probably what they're ripening, right?
Is the Breva.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, it's a weird.
That's
weird
awesome.
Fig, huh? That's
and there's
awesome.
no fig wasp when it ripens, so it's got to be a San Pedro.
Could you ever have a sport that would all of a sudden change its pollination behavior, where you would have like a Smyrna that would like branch off and all of a sudden be San Pedro like that, or be, common? Has that ever happened in records? I'm just throwing this out there because my brain's starting to spin.
Yeah, I don't recall. I don't recall ever hearing about that happen.
I've heard like whispers of a desert king that doesn't require pollination of the main crop, but I've never seen it. I've never seen it like for myself.
Right.
But I bet you it could happen. I think that there's a gene probably. I've talked to the fig hunter David Burke about this.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he thinks that there's a gene that was somehow switched on or off or whatever that changed, because every fig at one point needed pollination, and he believes there's a theory out there that somehow this gene changed and created what are common figs now. So I don't know if that's true, or I'm sure it could happen. Anything can happen. I mean, these mutations are nuts sometimes.
I mean, I think it's part of the resilience of a fig is that, especially with caprification, is that it's constantly testing its own gene pool. So when you do have a caprified fig, you pump out all those seeds, all of a sudden, like it's just, you get this genetic diversity in a way that's probably got some elements of adaptability to it, I assume. But in reality, it's just kind of testing the waters constantly. If you go that route rather than just taking scions.
So I got a question for Brian. If you were to not prune your trees the way you do, if you were to not hard prune them, do you think it would dramatically change the order in which they ripen? Do you think that unknown pastilier wouldn't be as early as it is, or do you think there'd be an earlier fig?
I think in the case with unknown pastilier, I don't think that is the case, because it's always been early, pruned or unpruned.
Okay.
But a lot of times, like Black Madeira, Black Madeira, I always prune hard. I did a video on the one out front here. I hacked it. But this winter, people were all, "What are you doing in that thing?" And you go out there now. I'm going to do an update, and it's beautiful, perfectly round, lush, figs all over the place, and it's freaking July, right? So sometimes what happens when you do those heavy prunings is the figs, they're forming already. Once those branches start, that tree kicks into gear, and all that green, healthy, actively growing wood, it's putting out figs. So I'll get Black Madeira figs, a little sporadic crop in August, but then I'll get the late ones too. So, there's manipulating fig trees. That's something that is part of kind of what I'm always looking at, just
as long as the variety is attuned to being able to put out fruit. Then, like when you do rejuvenation prune, I know, Ross, you've touched on that a lot about rejuvenation pruning, and that, like, I did it with my Paradiso gene. It grew freaking 9-10 feet. It was crazy, but the figs didn't ripen until November. But if I could do that with my Black Madeira or my Figo Preta, same thing. But that's good to know, because they grow so nice though. If you let them grow out there, they look so beautiful. Some of those Black Madeiras, if you can get them to grow nicely. But I guess if they're not doing the trick, it's good that you can prune them back.
Yeah, I try to keep them all fairly low to the ground. People don't understand. Like, it just, when I tell people to prune their trees, they have that single leader, right? And
Yeah.
they, when do I prune? Just prune it. There's why wait? Why wait? Right? Like,
Right.
I even go down to about. I go down to about.
Do it. Just do it.
And
I'll come over and do it. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
like, I'll never do it. People like freak out. You want me to cut this beautiful tree? That's you're not going to get branching till next year, and the branching is going to start at 6 foot, and then you're going to be at 12 foot. You're going to need a ladder. It makes no sense. So,
and I know which ones die all the way back to the ground now. I know which ones die back. I know which ones. Well, the first year you're growing figs, you have a couple different varieties. You think you're going to maintain that trunk, and then you get that frost and all the hard work you put into making it a single trunk fig. Yep. It just starts coming out of the ground like a hand from the grave. And so I know which varieties will die back now, and so I go out and I hack them to the ground right for that first freeze, and then I just mulch on top of them. And like you were saying, after like a change in weather, after the freeze, they come back stronger than ever. Every year, even in containers, my figs come back stronger. I get more and more figs, whether or not they died all the way back to the ground or they maintained that single trunk.
Yeah, they'll grow 15 feet here if you do that. It's crazy.
People don't. They don't. You have to kind of think outside the box with figs. They're resilient. Once they got ground, they're not going anywhere. I have a neighbor down the street. It's got I dated his tree. It's a white Adriatic from 1955. Okay, so they bought the house, huge productive tree. Wife hates it, messy. They whack it to the ground. Right? I'm laughing. I'm like, who's gonna remove the roots? The roots are gonna be massive, right? Every spring they're out there mowing it down. He's out there whacking it, and I just drove by it. It's 8 foot the other day.
It's like Phragmites or something.
Well,
that's what I tell people. Like, anyone who's listening who's getting into figs is like, my goal for you guys is like to help you get through the first 3 years with the tree. After 3 years, you're like, it's like you've hit cruising altitude a little bit, and you can be more. I'm not going to guarantee anything, but it's the first 3 years you really want to nurse them into the tree they can be.
Yeah, I try to on my channel at least take them through the whole year, and then they see exactly what I do, and I live by what I say, and I do what I say, and then they're just like, oh, I get it now. What I should do is just put a video together just the whole year, but what am I, someone who does this for a living or something?
A year in figs.
Yeah, a year in figs. There you go.
I got a couple questions here in the chat. Are there any academic institutes with current fig programs going? I'm sure. Like LSU,
UC Davis.
I'm sure. Yeah. Isn't UC Davis have like a bank or whatever, like a
repository?
Yeah, the suppository. Sorry.
Yeah.
What kind of figs you looking at?
Yeah.
UC Davis, UC Riverside, didn't they cultivate yellow long neck? Am I wrong on that? So you got to look at some of the ag programs. I didn't, and then Texas A&M. Do they do anything with figs?
I'm sure they do. There's been a bunch of programs trying to develop better varieties. Figs are growing in popularity very quickly here, especially in Texas. I'm starting to see, back in the day when I first started doing this, I would see the brown turkeys and the Celeste at Home Depot and Lowe's. And now, I was there and they had Culinary. Everybody's got this stupid little Miss Figgy now. I'm seeing a lot more Violet de Bordeaux. I'm seeing a lot more varieties.
I've been seeing some Peter's honey at the bigger, not the box stores, but over at some of the bigger nurseries in my area. I'm like, oh, you guys carrying Peter's honey? It's not bad.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people are like here, especially in my area, are tired of replacing their citrus every year. They're tired of replacing their Meyer lemons, their key limes, the Persian limes, all that stuff, because we're starting to get more and more freezes. here in the Houston area. And so I've been preaching, hey, try figs, try pomegranates, try stuff that will handle that cold weather. And they're getting more and more popular. And I've sold a lot of figs this year.
Well, not to sidetrack for figs because we could do this all night, but Ross, your pomegranate tree looked awesome.
Dude, I don't know what it is, man. It's a freaking Christmas tree. The damn thing. Dude, I was like, is this a pomegranate? No, it's amazing to have a pomegranate in zone 7A. Like,
yeah,
honestly, I should just be happy to get anything. I even have a sunbar I planted here on this orchard. So that's the earliest soft-seeded pomegranate.
Okay.
Trying to see what that does. And I even planted, I think it's a Severikiani. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's another cold hardy Russian pomegranate. Planted that one as well. So yeah, I mean, I think they're so easy to grow, these fruit trees. Persimmons is another one. If you like figs, you're gonna like persimmons. I'm sorry. You're gonna like an American persimmon that's rich, creamy, similar texture to a fig. It's like that jamminess to it. And they're just so
I've only
easy.
had the astringent ones. I've only had the non.
Well, Destin, I told you got to let them get ultra ripe, man.
I can't wait, man. It was good enough for the possums. It should be good enough for me. Like, what the heck? No,
I'm new to the persimmon game. I just got one. I got the Giambo. Is that
that's
right?
a good one.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I'm excited for it.
That one you definitely want to use for hoshigaki. So dried persimmon, you peel the skin.
Okay.
Some people dip them in boiling water, and then you just hang them and put the fan on, or you can hang them in a dry place. And for 20 to 30 days, they turn into the best dried fruit.
Holy cow.
Giambo is perfect because it's such a big fruit that when it shrinks down, it's still rather large.
Still substantial. Do you have to do it that way, or could I put it in a dehydrator? Or it wouldn't be the same?
It's not the same. When you slow dry fruits, it's definitely a different experience. But, Giambo or these Asian persimmons, to me, they're very mild compared to the American persimmon. So for me, I don't eat them fresh. The only way I ever eat them is dried.
Oh, that's good to know. In the American persimmons, and you're talking, are American persimmons generally, what was it, astringent?
Yes.
Or they're not? Okay.
I don't think there is an American that isn't astringent at this point.
Got it.
Now they've crossed them and created hybrids of the Asian and the American, but I think a true American, I don't think you'll find one that's not astringent.
Good to know. All right, I'm gonna check that out.
Got another comment. It says, I'm a fan of Brian's tree shapes. The lower the better. So you keep your trees low and pickable, right?
I'm not allowed to use ladders. My wife told me no ladders.
That's the rule. No ladders.
She used to work as a respiratory therapist at the hospital, so ladder falls were in there quite a bit, and then it just made sense, right? I looked at some of the Japanese videos on how they grow them like grapes, low cordons, and they grow them along the ground.
Those are crazy looking. Yeah. Those cordons that are like 6 inches off the ground.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, bush form, more branches, more figs. Why not? And sure enough, it's working out really well. So I try to keep everything, under 8 foot, 10 foot, because I could bend the branches down if you're careful, and you could pick the very top figs.
Well, and once they're ripe and heavy with figs, I mean, the branch is coming down anyway. Typically, I've had ones come on the ground and start rooting on the grass, because they were there that long. It's crazy. I really like when they do them on like vineyard style. They put them like on the stainless wire, and like just let them run. Like I think that's really cool.
Yeah, the sky's the limit with figs. Like how you want to prune them, or just you could get really creative. Definitely.
Yeah, isn't that the best part? They're so
the best part.
There's a million ways to do the same thing.
And if you mess up, start over the next year, right? You like one of the main questions right now I get is my back is a bush form. Well, remove all the branches except one. And it's just there's so many different techniques and ways to get creative with the single nodes. It's pretty cool. So I'm always exploring with that. And it's fun because I think figs are one of the only crops that are like that.
Yeah.
Where you could mess them up or
Yeah.
really low and they'll still fruit.
Yeah, I agree.
That is the only fruit. I was thinking about it today. There is no other fruit other than the ever-bearing strawberry that will produce multiple crops of fruit and will continuously produce throughout the entire growing season.
Yeah.
And it's on the new growth. I mean, if you think about it, apricots, plums, peaches, pears, apples, they're not on the new growth.
Right.
Mulberries form on the new growth, but they're not growing and forming mulberries as the tree grows. The fig is like totally unique. Grapes, they form on the new growth, but it's one shot, 2 or 3 clusters per shoot. That's it.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. That it's the only one in reality.
Yeah, and there's all these fig haters out there who say that they're not different or unique. They're like, oh, it's just a fig tree. There's nothing special about it. But it's like, yeah, that's a legit clear difference between any other fruiting plant.
Yeah,
I have that a lot with gardeners here. Oh, sorry, Dustin.
Oh no, I was saying, like, I laugh because I always joke around. I say I have a white trash taste flavor palette because people describe like, oh yeah, this one tastes like this, like that one tastes like strawberry, that one tastes like honey, that one tastes like banana. And like I did a Fig Hunter tasting box a couple of years ago, and I was like, well, this one's really good. It tastes like berries. This one tastes like berries.
Yeah.
I was like, I've eaten too much macaroni and frozen pizza. My palate is just destroyed. They're all good though.
I don't taste any of those bizarre flavors. Different pie flavors. People say different cakes or whatever. I just taste the berry, honey, maybe some hints of banana, like you, Dustin.
Yeah. It's more of a texture for the banana thing, I think. More of a banana texture.
Floral flavor.
But you have to factor into the sweetness thing, and this is why, like, what I look for sometimes with the cold adams, this is tangential flight, is that acidic bite that you get where that's where you have that berry tones and stuff. But like sometimes when you have those like honey figs when I'm eating coffee, and like it's not until after I've like swallowed the bite of fig, and I'm like, holy cow, it's like residual like layers sugar syrup in my mouth. And I was like, okay. So like anyone who's out there is like, I don't like figs, they're not that sweet. I'm like, they obviously haven't had any of these figs. Like just come over to my house, But yeah, sometimes that's an additional piece. Yeah. That's the additional piece too, is just like the straight up bricks count of some of these figs.
And be careful what you wish for, by the way, Phil.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
Coming over to your house. You don't want that.
Where's the figs? I'm like, oh God.
I don't know if y'all can see this. I sent this to Phil. Somebody showed up to work today and they had an entire box.
It's a good coworker right there.
Oh, wow.
And everybody assumed it was me. And I was like, y'all think I'm bringing y'all my figs? Like, you're out of your mind. It was this old guy at work and he's got like this giant LSU gold tree in his front yard. He brought like an insane amount of figs. But what everybody didn't eat, which wasn't a lot, I brought home. We're going to wash, freeze, and get ready for jellies and all kinds of stuff. Figs don't go to waste in my house.
Also, Destin,
go ahead.
If you need help, I had a chef come over to mine last year, and I had him try some of these figs, and he's able to explain what's going on in your palate a little bit. And when he says, you're like, oh, and that helped me on my way a little bit when I was trying to figure out whether it's berries, bananas, or honey.
Yeah, well, I've in the military, I was up to like my waist in jet fuel, and now I don't taste like certain things. And then also smoked cigarettes for a long time, so like my tastes are like kind of just I'm nicotine free now, but like I can see why my taste buds aren't what they should be.
Got it.
But 100% yes, yeah. But I wish the only thing they kind of talks about figs is that they won't ripen off the tree. I wish there was a variety they could develop that you could pick the fig when it's close to, like, because I pick my tomatoes early to save them from the mockingbirds. So if there was a variety of fig, I could pick a little bit early, let it ripen on the windowsill, and keep going. But I don't think that's possible.
No.
Well, you can't. This is what you can do, and I like to. If I, when I pick before the rain comes in, I inevitably get figs that are underripe. So what I'll do is I'll cut them in half, put them on a plate or a tray, skin side down, and then I'll slow dry them just like the way that I mentioned with the dried persimmon, the hoshigaki. If you
Okay.
slow dry them rather than actually putting them in a dehydrator or the oven, they're going to be way better. So 2 to 3 weeks in the fridge. Hopefully the figs are dry. You don't have any mold on them, and you actually will get a decent fig out of that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Ooh,
That's really cool.
I
We
like that.
refrigerate all of our figs, and the ones that sit for 2 or 3 days in the refrigerator, they dehydrate a bit and get more concentrated. I feel like that enhances the flavor.
Yeah, I definitely I like a lot of people go out there and they like to bite the fig right off the tree. When it's 100 degrees outside in my backyard, I bite into a hot bubbling bubble of jelly. I usually take them and put them in the fridge overnight, and they it's like they sit up a little better. They sit up, they soften up, they cool down. I think they taste better the next day out of the fridge. I feel like they taste better that way.
Yeah,
I've
they
heard that a lot.
best that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like what is y'all's? Because my wife makes like fig jams, fig jellies, fig Newtons, fig cookies. What is y'all's best like dish do you enjoy figs in?
For us, fig jam. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll tell you right here. This stuff right here, we sell out every year, but I always keep a jar on hand. This is our Pro fig jam.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
nice.
It's pretty killer. You put it on. We're pretty basic, like Ritz crackers and cream cheese, and a slab of this right here. It's like one of the best things on earth. Like it's just amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, for us, fig jam with parties with people, they're just blown away with how good it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go ahead, Ross.
Yeah, my go-to if I'm gonna, I always eat them fresh. By the way, okay, you can't beat it fresh by itself, but definitely a cheese board is probably my go-to. So like meats, cheese, what else you got? A honey, some nuts. But I think what's something I'm gonna try this year is a little bit of mint, just like a sliver of mint, and we're gonna see how that works out. And what I've been doing recently throughout this winter time, and I've been making a lot of fruit salad, and I'll just mix some of the best fruits I've got or whatever I can find that's really high quality at the grocery store. I'll mix it all up, add a little bit of honey, lime, and then that mint just brings it all to like another level. So I'm gonna do the same thing with the
Oh,
figs this year. And I think what's underrated is herbs with figs too, like rosemary, thyme, maybe in a little bit of lavender if you're feeling crazy. Some of these herbs can definitely make the flavors a little bit more pronounced and make a bit more sense in your mind. There's a few. I also want to try with a little bit with salt because there's definitely a bit of perceived bitterness in some of the fruits. And I think maybe, I don't know, Brian, you can tell me, but does Unknown Pastilliere have a bit of that bitter skin? I know Nerucciolo de Elba is one of my favorites. It definitely gets a more bitter skin the later we go into the season, especially as the temperatures cool down. So if I add a little bit of salt, I'm curious because when you add salt to coffee, it lowers that perceived bitterness.
Yeah.
So I'm wanting to see if that's going to work out. But I hate the idea of altering the perfect state that it's in because
Yeah.
I just am like a purist in that way. But I don't know. Maybe
but
this will be a thing.
but it's part of the experimentation. Like I've done it with like salt on watermelon, and I've done it with salt on cantaloupe, right?
Yeah.
And then I've done with mint on watermelon, and watermelon is one of those things that also can have like a subtle flavor that figs can sometimes have, and so but it like helps make the whole like thing pop in your mouth, right? It's such a complimentary piece. But I'm also a purist. I love figs with my coffee. Like that's if I wasn't filming that, like I post that when I'm out there when I'm eating figs and coffee. But like if I'm not posting, I'm doing that anyway. And I think they just complement each other so well.
Have you
fresh
seen the fig coffee, by the way? There's like a coffee.
fig brew.
Is that
They've
what it's
been on.
called?
They've been on the Marianne and Andy have been on the founders.
You're
They've
kidding
been on
me.
the podcast. Yeah, they're actually one of our sponsors. I guess we can talk about the Figtoberfest that we're doing down here on October 5th. Phil is coming down. The Fig Hunter is coming down. Fig Brew has supplied all the figgy it'll be from 8 to 1, and we'll have plenty of figgy to go around. Everybody wants to try fig brew coffee is going to get a free cup. I have also talked to a local bakery and talking about fig dishes here in this part of Texas. A lot of Czech people, and one of our favorite dishes is called the kolache or a klobásnik, and it is almost like a cheese Danish, but a lot of times they'll make them with fruit, and they usually get like cherry and cream cheese like that. I'm working with a local bakery, and we're going to make fig Danishes. I'm going to take some of my figs over to them, and we're going to make the filling, and it's going to be amazing. So we will have, fig kolaches at the event as well.
Awesome, man.
That's really cool.
So
I need to get some chefs over here or something. I usually just
Yeah,
order.
man.
I don't even want to share unless it's like somebody I'm really good friends with and by the way, if they don't appreciate it, not getting any more figs, that's for sure.
Yeah. You're on the Dunzo list.
Yeah.
Dunzo.
No, I love that. But having the chef was really fun because he talked about drying the fig leaves and incorporate that into focaccia. And then he was like, then you layer the fig and the creme brulee at the top of it. So you go through like the bitter all the way to the sweet. He was kind of layering all the stages, right? So your salt, fat, acid, heat. Just to think that way, just to get your brain going a little bit. And then obviously we all love figs, so it just made me love figs more. But yeah, it was really fun.
I did a talk at the Herb Society of America Houston chapter, and every month they bring a speaker in to talk about a certain thing, and they wanted me to talk about figs. And they do like a potluck where everybody brings dishes related to the talk. So they brought a bunch of like fig dishes, and there was a couple of Turkish people who they brought some Turkish fig dishes. They're freaking delicious. But that was one of the things they were asking about is uses for the leaves. And I have never done anything with the leaves. I've always thought that you really couldn't do much with them because of the latex.
Yeah. Well, so you dry them. This is actually something I want to do a lot of this year too. I've done it in the past where you dry the leaves and then you can cook them similar to grape leaves. You can cook fish and you just surround the fish or whatever it is you want to put in the leaves, and it imparts that aroma and that flavor. You don't eat them. You can do, I think you can do that with the grape leaves, but yeah, you can do that with fish, and then you can make a fig leaf syrup or fig leaf tea. But you have to, when you harvest them, obviously it's during the growing season. There is sap, so you don't want to get burned. The latex will burn you. So wear long sleeves and gloves. You're not a real fig grower if you don't have burns on your skin.
Yeah.
So, I'm telling you that it will. I mean, some people say they're not allergic. I call, you know what I mean on that. Like, that's just, I think it depends on the variety, the temperature, all these different things. But, certainly if you leave that burn on your skin, it's going to, but you'll probably feel it right away. But if you don't feel it, it's kind of like invisible in a way that's like poison ivy. Now, it's not going to spread like poison ivy, but it's going to stay there, create that inflammation just like any other burn, and you're going to get a blister. So put some hydrocortisone on it. And the way to get rid of it is to use degreasing soap. Scrub that degreasing soap like the dish soap, because it's an oil-based latex, I guess. I don't know the science of it, but yeah, if you use that, then put the hydrocortisone on, you'll be good.
I'm getting more and more allergic as I'm getting older.
I was going to ask if your sensitivity increases over time.
It does. My arms are a mess, man, and I'm pretty cautious. Like, I wear the big leather gloves that go up to my elbows, but I pull them off sometimes, and like, you don't even realize when you get. I think there's stuff in the leaves too, man. Like, I rub up against the leaves, and I'll have red, itchy areas.
So I get that. I get itchy, but I've never been burned by the latex. I try to keep it off me, but I don't think I've ever been burned by the latex. I do like get itchy when I mess around with the leaves and stuff, but I don't think I've ever been burned.
You may
by
got
the actual set.
Gator skinner.
I mean, I'm fat. I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know if that's what it is. Like, maybe a layer of fat doesn't get me burned. I don't know. When Ross was like burned, I was like, I've never been burned by it, but like I've gotten it in my eye before,
Oh,
and that's not great.
geez.
that's not good.
Back
That's
when I
bad.
used to, I don't wear contacts anymore, but I did for a long time. And not only do figs have latex in their sap, but so do like pencil cactuses and like
Plumeria.
a bunch of plumerias. So you really want to wear PPE anytime you're messing with something like that. But yeah, I've never had the actual skin burn, but I do get super itchy when I mess around with like my tomatoes, my figs, okra too will do that. But yeah, it's always a good idea to wear long sleeves and gloves no matter what, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
I
sure,
wonder
man.
about like pets because this is another thing people ask me all the time about their pets, and I don't really have a dog, I don't have a pet, so I don't know what would happen in that situation because dogs will love to run through your plants, and I'm
Oh
sure
my
there's going to be
gosh.
fig sap get on them at some point. If somebody knows, let me know. Send me a message or something because
My dog is super nosy, and like I've got fig trees aligned all along my fence, and he is super nosy getting in the bushes and stuff. And he doesn't typically have a problem. He'll even chew on some of the sticks sometimes. Like if I have a stick, he's chewed on sticks and hasn't like had problems. I don't purposely give them to him, but he'll go find them, and he chews on them and he's fine. But I don't know. It could be case to case basis. I
case to
don't know.
case, tree to tree, yes,
Tree
fat
to tree.
dog to skinny dog.
Fat dog, skinny dog.
But
You assume I got a fat dog, Ross. What is going on?
I never said that. Never said that.
Oh my god.
So yeah, what about questions in the chat? No,
Tangential flight.
change the subject.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. What do you think about calling? What do you think about calling the flavor profiles another food name instead of the specific profile? Nah, that's not a good question.
No.
I'm sorry to that
Let's see.
person.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, same.
I didn't understand.
I'm gonna go find it right now. I
we
got
could
you.
We could
Let's
talk
see.
about watering because I know that's something that came
Yeah.
up.
That was a topic. I'm going through like some of the popular questions, like because we're all in a heat wave right now. Like summer hit us all
Yeah.
really hard, and
Well,
I
wanna talk
could
about
totally
that.
talk about that.
I want to talk about that, but also can we talk? Brian had mentioned it in the messages earlier about some kind of fly or something that people were having an issue with. And Cal,
The
I
black-
don't know anything about. I don't know anything about this, so I want to hear from
Me
the horse's
neither.
mouth over there.
So basically, it's called the black fig fly. So the black fig
Oh.
fly came from an imported shipment of figs from Mexico, and it came across the border and kind of planted itself in Southern California. So the black fig fly is already in the Mediterranean. Other like Turkey, they have it, and it's really this is pretty bad right now. Southern California is infested all the way from Los Angeles to almost to Mexico. I was working with the Department of Agriculture down there in San Bernardino. It's to the point where it's categorized as an ant, so they can't spray anything, they can't do anything because it's completely infested. So I'm going to tell you how it works. There's the fly deposits its eggs under the little flaps of the ostiole, the eye of the fig. Okay, so it gets the eggs in there. The eggs hatch. The larva goes through the eye into the fig, grows. It feeds off the fig. It grows, and then the fig falls to the ground, and then that larva drills a hole out the side of the fig, turns into a fly, and flies away. So that's kind of the process. So your fig drops before it ripes. It drops prematurely.
Mm.
Right now, it's about 70 to 80% total crop failure. So it's nasty. Okay. So, and what's hard for me is all my friends that are in Southern California are all depressed and sad right now because they're going in year 2, year 3, and all their crops are getting wiped out. And it's a big mess. And it's like they're seeing all this money they put into this new hobby, and a lot of them are getting out of it now. Like they're selling their trees. The very same trees I sold them or somebody else sold them, they're now selling and moving on to another fruit. So right now, Sacramento sent out a bulletin. There's 10 counties affected in California. Luckily, Fresno to Merced has not had one case yet, according to the USDA. So it goes from LA all the way to the Grapevine, and then from San Jose into the Bay Area, and around that area is the other pocket. So we're in the middle, and we're the fig capital, right? For the United States is Fresno, Madera, Merced. This little area produces most of the figs for Trader Joe's and all those places. But right now, the only thing you could do is really use organza bags. I'm sure you guys are familiar with them, and just bag every fig. But the problem is this fly is getting in there when they're really small too. So, people talked about putting tape with the eye over the eye, but the fig's gonna grow. It's like right now they got UC Riverside working on it. Their department there is working on something because
you couldn't use like kaolin clay or something to like try to just coat the thing to keep it off, or is it just like it is small? It sounds like it's really small, and it sounds like it spreads crazy fast.
Really?
And do they? Yeah.
They have 4 cycles, 4 generations. I think that's what it is. Each fly. So, people I'm getting pictures every few days, private messages of people's figs infected. They cut them open, and then there's the larva. There's the famous Instagrammer that I called out that she's the bug lady. She's got 500,000 followers, and here she is saying it's fig wasps. She cuts her figs open. Look at all the fig wasps, inside. Those are larvae. They're black fig fly larvae. And claiming they're fig wasps and spreading all this misinformation, and it's just driving me nuts. So there shouldn't be any figs. I just read the bulletin. There's no movement of any figs from California, period, because nobody knows where this fly is going to pop up. Say if it's like I'm not shipping any fresh figs. I already told everybody. I've made my stance. If you get a box of figs and you open it up, everything looks great. A few days later, a hole might form, and then here comes a larva and turn into a fly, and that's how it spreads. You don't see it until it drops and hits the ground. You have to see evidence. There's nothing you could tell ahead of time. So once it hits the ground, you'll see the hole. They all have them, and that's when the cycle starts. So the goal is to keep it where it is until they find a solution. That's the goal.
To quarantine.
But there is no mandatory quarantine. So now
there needs to be. That sounds terrible.
Morals, right? So there's even like live plants. They should be bare rooted. Like if they're coming out of California, you should probably be bare rooting them, or make sure it's a sterile medium that's not grown outside. Because the larva will be it gets in the soil.
Okay, I was going to ask,
Yeah, and that's where it turns into a fly. I don't know all the names and anything, but that's the basics of it. And spreading very fast. And we're at stage 3. I just read the USDA report, which means basically it's inevitable that it's going to hit the Central Valley. Like everything is lined up for it to hit here. So we're kind of on standby. And we're just praying that it doesn't hit, and there's been sightings of it at different Home Depots. It's coming from some of the big nurseries are transferring it. They grow out these trees that have figs on them. You'll see them sometimes. They're 5 gallons, and they'll be 4 foot tall, and they'll have a few figs. And BF black fig fly has been found in some of them, so they're being transported that way too, through the trade.
So is this the pest? Is this the one? I'm gonna share my screen real quick. I can show you the actual. I think I can do this.
And it has a very specific pattern that it flies, and it has the wings lay over on its back, and it's pretty easy to identify.
So Brian, you can't spray anything on the figs when they're forming on the tree?
I mean, it may come down to it. Yeah, there it is, right there.
Look at that.
So black fig fly, Diptera Silba adipata, invasive fig pest recently discovered in Southern California. Fig growers need to be aware of the black fly BFF, an invasive insect that was recently discovered infesting figs in multiple counties in Southern California. The BFF has been reported in the following counties. I won't name all those. Movement of figs from these counties is not recommended as it may lead to additional artificial spread of BFF to other areas of the state. So, are they concerned that it's going to cross state lines, or have they had any sightings like cross state lines, or has it just been in California so far?
It's just been in California, and I feel like they're, from the last bulletin I read, they're trying to protect the little area of figs that's left, because once
that's the internal damage. That's so weird.
Yeah, and they were saying that the what would happen if it did hit these orchards is they would have the organza bag each fig, and that would,
Oh my gosh, that's not possible.
No way.
That would raise labor, that would raise the overall price. So that would be right as of right now. That's the step that they would have to take.
So figure 5, this McPhail trap. I wonder if that is that some kind of. So let's see. Biological
different trap.
This is an example of one. So biological control appears to be limited, and there are currently no chemical controls that were registered specifically for the pest on this California figs. As such, orchard sanitation is critical, and growers should make sure to remove and destroy any BFF infested fruits. That is so crazy.
It's wild, man.
Can they handle freezes?
Fig fruits can be inspected for signs of BFF activity, such as larval feeding or exit holes. Focus on unripe fruits that have recently fallen from the tree. Populations of BFF adults can also be monitored using McPhail-type traps baited with torula yeast lures, although efficiency of this trap lure combination is still under evaluation. Wow. Well, I'm going to be on the lookout. I don't have a lot of figs dropping, honestly. Ever. But I will keep an eye on, a lookout. So as long as you're getting bare root, like cuttings, you're okay, right? Cuttings with no soil, you should be fine. Is there anything I wonder if there's any way to like a good way to maybe sanitize your cuttings just to be safe, like if you get them in the mail, like with like a spray or like something just to be safe, I wonder.
Diluted hydrogen peroxide solution or something.
Yeah, I always recommend I use Clorox wipes on all my cuttings. I've never had an issue, but it kills everything. So I know the USDA has. So I have an USDA agent in the California figs group. A lot of people don't know this. So I've talked to him many times, and he's in charge of the BFF up north. He's not Southern California, he's northern. So he's monitoring everything and keeping an eye on all these cases. But he's really scared that it's going to take over up there too. So that's what's going on with the black fig fly. We just pray it doesn't hit here. That's all we can do. And I feel very sad for those collectors and homeowners that are having big messes in their yards and having to spend hours using organza bags on each individual fig, and then so we're looking at alternatives. I was thinking pot culture should be bigger and down south. You could use mosquito netting and wrap the whole pot. Put some big stakes up and wrap the whole thing tight, because it does get through. I've heard people trying it, but it does get through. So maybe that would be an effective method. You'd have to prune your trees a certain way, but I think we're going to have, there's a lot of people involved in thinking and brainstorming this, besides the researchers who are looking for, some type of treatment. But in the meantime, it's a serious deal, and it's hitting pretty much a majority of fig growers down south. They're all getting hit. They're all over the freeway. We were just in Legoland, and they're all over. The trees are a mess. There's fig flies everywhere over there. In San Diego, it's real bad.
Is there a natural predator for these bugs? Do we?
No.
No. So it seems like we don't know a ton about the pest.
No.
Unless
here, sorry, go ahead, Phil.
I was going to say, what kind of mitigation techniques do they use in Europe to deal with them? That would be
traps. They would use traps, half vinegar, half water. but everything works. It's very minimal.
Localized.
Yeah, there's yeast people are mixing, and they're getting some, but it's just no one's like hit the jackpot yet. Like what works, you know? But it's attracted to the latex. It's attracted to the latex. That is the main attractor.
Oh.
Is it also attracted to other latex fruits like mulberries and different
No,
species of ficus?
Only figs. That's it.
Okay.
Oh wow.
It's very
and it is in Europe. You just said.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, this bug reminds me of. It's terrible, obviously, but I've been growing plums for like 7 years, and I've probably ripened 3 good plums because there's a bug called plum cucurleo that's been in the United States for like forever, and it does the same exact thing. It, you know, the male will bite every fruit on your tree, every single peach, cherry, apricot, plum, even the pears, the apples. There's different types of cucurleo. Then the female comes around, goes into that half moon shaped bite, and then lays their larva. Then you get worms like the fairy tale with Snow White, the worm in the apple. And you just get worms in there crawling around, eating the way inside out. Then you end up getting brown rot because there's all this damage in your fruit. And I just really have eaten 3 plums in like 7 years. So
oh my gosh,
you have to spray for that. There's no real other way to get around it. But I think orchard management is probably the second best thing. If you're gonna complete the life cycle of that pest, it's just gonna keep going. You know, if they're gonna crawl out of the fruit or drop out of the fruit once they eat their way out and the larva falls to the ground or the plum falls to the ground, then they go into the soil, then they complete their life cycle. Yeah. So there's got to be a way to break it. And I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I feel really bad for everybody because this is, and that's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Well,
in Europe is.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say there's another pest. I was in Italy last September, and there's 2 commercial growers I got to meet. Shout out to Ciro.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you go to Ciro Petracchi's estate?
I did, and shout out to.
He sounds Greek, not Italian.
Lucky.
I don't know. His family's been in Tuscany forever, so I don't know.
Oh wow.
Anyway, shout out to Cornelia and Mattia Olmazzoli at Olmazzoli Nursery. They both, and they're having their own crisis because there's a pest called the Acles that is killing all the trees. So you want to talk about losing the fruits? Well, you're going to lose all the trees, and they're losing all of their diversity. In fact, Mattia Olmazzoli is doing incredible work. He's literally traveling around all of northern Italy, looking at thousands of fig trees to try to preserve and document some of the most important varieties that they have.
Is it a borer or what is it?
It is a borer, yeah. It's actually a borer. It's a big beetle. I saw it firsthand. I saw Ciro digging around in the trunks of his trees at the base, and they will just literally eat the tree inside out, and it's there's nothing you can do. It's hard to even get them out once they're in. Man. So, you know, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there it seems like the fig was once you know, the easiest fruit tree to grow is becoming something that is being targeted a lot.
Well, do they know where that pest came from? Has the pest been around for a while and just kind of multiplied, or
from somewhere in Asia at this point?
Oh my gosh!
Man, Asia's getting a bad rap. No, I was gonna say, you know, it sucks as, like, you know, fig growers that we spend all this time, you know, taking away the stigma of people thinking that there's wasps in their figs, there's worms in their figs, only for it to find out that, hey, now there's going to be freaking bugs in your figs, and it's not even the fig wasp. Yeah. That sucks, man. That sucks. Yeah. And then you're gonna get a ton of the misinformation, like Brian was saying. You know, I'm sure that girl has got a lot of views in that video.
I mean,
anytime you do a
video about wasps, how many, like, anytime you talk about a wasp and a fig, it's like, oh my god, the world is ending. I mean, and they just disintegrate. It's like, you know, actually a good thing when there's a wasp in your fig. It's like, oh, that was better flavor. It's bigger. Usually it's gonna be better quality. I mean, and then they're complaining about it. I guess there's an argument for vegans, but beyond that, I don't get it.
Well, somebody asked me the other day. I did a video and I was talking about figs, and they go, "Oh yeah, but how many wasps did you eat?" And I was like, well, none in my figs. I was like, but it's nothing compared to the amount of bugs in your bread.
Oh my
You
god,
know,
yeah.
I was like, if you're worried about bugs, don't
Yeah.
eat bread, don't eat pasta,
Don't
eat
grow food,
anything.
man. Don't grow
Yeah.
food at all.
Yeah.
You know how many ants I've eaten in my life? It's crazy.
Oh my
I'm like,
God.
dude, I become one with bugs.
Yeah.
I am a bug.
Yes.
You better be careful.
Don't ever go to now where I grew up was a bunch of rice farmers and they have rice silos, and you can go in those silos, and you'll see some wild stuff. You'll see some stuff coming out of them silos at night, you know. So like, there's all kinds of stuff in your food. You know, the fig wasp is the least of your concern.
Oh yeah.
I think with social media being so big now, you know, it gives people, you know, this voice to make statements, you know, even though they're not even true, just to get views, you know, and it's so frustrating that I have to spend, you know, maybe an hour a day responding to people that, you know, are believing what they're saying, you know. I mean, and that's one of the pitfalls of social media is misinformation. And you know,
I love it though. I think it's an opportunity. I think it's an advantage. You know
Yes.
something about anything, you can capitalize on that. I mean, think about it, right? If you tell people that, oh wait, you know, half the nurseries that sell fig trees don't even know the varieties that they're selling. Half the time they're mislabeled. They don't even know the name of the variety. How do you sell something and not know your product? It's like you're a car salesman and you're like, oh yeah, that thing has 3 wheels. You know, it's like, it's just crazy, and they get away with it because of their name. But eventually, people are catching on, and then they're like, oh wait, that guy actually knows what he's talking about. Let me deal with him. Let me buy something from him. Let me, you know, all that.
Yes.
So
That's a great point. It's decentralizing like that big commercial sphere, and it's giving you a chance to bring to light like a rebuttal, like, hey, that is not the fig wasp. So it's actually offering you a platform to kind of come in there too.
Well,
you know what, too? I think the people that believe this crap, they don't know anything about figs anyway. So the people who actually care and want to learn about figs, they know the difference. And maybe this woman gets 1.3 million views. At the end of the day, it's a short-lived thing. Who cares?
sunlight is the best disinfectant. You know, for people who put out bad information. You know, I've got videos from 2-3 years ago where like I can't believe I made a video on that. That was the dumbest thing I've ever said. You know, I said it last week. I got videos where I put spoiled milk in the garden. You know, I got stuff like that. You know, so like you also grow and learn more as you go as well. But you know, some people would say, you know, even like you go to these electroculture people, you know, which by the way, I've got 30-foot electroculture figs in my backyard. You know,
wait, what is that?
Oh, you know about electroculture. Just shut up. You know about that.
No, I don't.
Right?
I don't think I do. What is that?
Oh my God. Well,
It's about using copper wire to like bring electromagnetic conductivity to your soil to spike and growth in your plants.
So
Does it work?
No.
That's the debate. That's the debate.
So I did a video where I did 10 different kinds of. I did 5 different kinds of figs, 2 of each. I did one plant with a wooden pole with copper wire around it, and each one to compare. And the video got 1 million views.
Oh wow!
But it did nothing. And like I said, hey, I'll do like a 1-month update. And I've never done it because it's the dumbest thing. There's no comparison. There's nothing to. It's nothing. It's the dumbest thing ever. But people swear by it, you know. And you know, people out there that believe in crystals and stones, like Phil. You know, I mean,
I'm a geologist.
All hail the stone! All hail the stone! No, I'll send you some links, Ross. You will really enjoy it. Yeah, electroculture is a rabbit hole. You can go down, man.
I'm open-minded. I'll try it.
No, I will. I will. For $20 and 1 million views on a video, I will try something. But it doesn't mean it's going to work.
Again, be careful what you wish for on that one. I would say $20 and 1 million views will do stuff. All right.
Oh my!
Should we talk about water before you know?
Yes.
Go down the crazy rabbit hole here.
Yeah. Go ahead. Now, like, what are y'all's water methods right now? I know it's getting hot everywhere right now.
Yeah,
I have to invest in irrigation. I thought I'd made it in the clear after a few years of in-ground development. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. And so I definitely found some ones that work. And then I've been working with like the Drip Depot gives you different button drippers, so you can go like half gallon per hour, quarter gallon per hour, 1 gallon per hour. And I found I had good luck with my half gallon per hour for 2 hours, and I can spread it out over a 2-hour time frame into the mulch. And I thought I didn't have to. I ripped it up from in-ground trees, and then because we get a lot of rain down here in the southeast, and when we have a dry spell like that, I was like, oh no, trees are not liking this, and I have to go back and install it again. So that's where I'm at with it. It's just been rough without the consistent rainfall.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most important thing that you can teach a new fig grower, because I mean, it's crazy. I think people like myself, I got into houseplants first, and then I moved into fig trees, and that was the first fruiting plant I grew. But it's like, are people starting with fig trees and not starting with anything else before that? I think that's the case, because if you don't have a green thumb, you don't know how to water a plant properly, and you just start growing an apricot or a persimmon or whatever it is, you're gonna have a hard time,
Yes.
So I don't know. I feel bad for these people, and to me, it's like such a thing. I don't even ever think about it. I almost never think about water. I never think about fertilizer, because I got an automatic timer, does it for me every day. I mean, I look at the forecast, I adjust it based on the forecast or whatever happens, and that's it. Like, I don't even. It's like some people, they actually hand water. Like my friend Carlos in New Jersey. I think he's probably out there like 30, 45 minutes every day, just watering his trees. It's that can be tough. I don't have time for that. I mean, it's nice to go out there and hand water, but at some point you got more than one fig tree, you're not going to go hand water these trees.
Yeah.
And it just eliminates all the mistakes. You want to simplify anything you can do in life that is like a repetitive task. So that way you can eliminate the problems. So just get a timer.
As efficient as possible. Efficient. Yeah. Your time needs to be as efficient as possible.
People want to see my irrigation setup. I'm like, it's not anything special. There's nothing to it.
It's so boring. It's
very boring. I don't. You get that a lot. You get that a lot too.
100% people, and I have plenty of videos. So I have a micro sprinkler setup. I got a half-inch line that runs all the way across my yard. It's split up into 3 zones because I got so many. Because everything's in a pot, I have the half-inch line, then a quarter-inch line that tees off into a micro sprinkler. It's like a mister, and that gets everything about once a day. I water about 15 minutes once a day. It's very boring, but it's super simple. I always tell people, if your stuff is on a sprinkler, especially this time of year because it's so hot, at least once or twice a week, when your sprinkler goes off, go make sure that your sprinklers are going off, because it'll be that 1 week that you don't check, that one of them isn't going off, and you lose a tree or lose something, and it's going to suck. So don't just rely on those timers. You need to double check. It's just like a safety on a firearm. Anything mechanical can fail. So always double check that. Like I'm scared to do it. I'm scared to do it out when I'm out of town. I'm scared to leave it on when I'm out of town. I have my neighbor go do it for me. I'm too scared. Like something's gonna leak and it's gonna run for 3 days. I'm out of town. I can't do it.
So, well, especially like over time, your like your timers and things, like they do get build up, the accumulation of things, and you just have to maintain it and be cognizant, like if it's functioning properly, right? And so like, because that's what's going to trigger it to not work. I've had that where my timers are like almost like they have such hard buildup, and because I have well water and I have a direct source right out to a hose from my well, and that'll get build up really bad. And then I've gone through a few timers already because of that.
Yeah.
Wait, but doesn't yours just shut off automatically once it's done?
Yes, but I've had so I've had the digital ones, and then now I'm on the egg timer. I've got one digital one, and I've got one egg timer one that I kind of do. I'm OCD, dude. If it's leaking really bad, like I don't know. I've got some of those new Orbit timers that work on like an app, and I just haven't even taken out of the box yet. I want to do them, but I'm just so nervous. I don't trust that stuff. Brian, you got 1 million fig trees in the ground. What do you do for yours?
All of mine are on drip as well. I believe they're 4-gallon emitters. and I run them for 20 minutes a day.
4 gallons per minute?
Per hour.
Yeah.
Oh,
Per hour.
minute.
Or wait, hour?
Per hour.
Yeah.
It's
4
got to be per
gallons.
hour.
It's got
Yes,
per hour.
yes.
Per
4
hour.
gallons a minute. It's like a.
Yeah.
4 gallons a day wouldn't be dripping.
Dude, that'd be
Just
insane.
Yeah. Um,
I was like,
Just
don't ask
quite
me
the
what's
water bill, man.
but I'm telling you guys, Dustin, I feel it, man, because I have valves go out. Like every year, at least 1 or 2 valves go out. Just some type of component inside fails, and then I'll get the message on the box, and it's like, luckily I went to the farm and checked, because one of the rows is not getting water, so I'm out there at least every like 3 days, even during winter. Winter I turn everything off, but early spring, because it happens, and it's like $200 there, $200 there to get these valves replaced, because they're just cheap, they're plastic parts now, and
Well,
they fail.
yeah.
Like I said, they fail. They only last a year or two. That's it.
And they fail at the least convenient time is when
Right.
they fail.
Right.
Yes.
And the emitters will get plugged up. Some of them I use the 360-degree heads too. Those work pretty good. But once I like I put out the question, what's the hardest thing about growing figs in pots, or and I swear watering is
Watering.
right up there at the top. Telling everybody, drip is so easy, man. You just go to Drip Depot. It's simple stuff, and then once you're set up on drip, it's smooth sailing. Like, love it because your trees are constantly moist, and you're gonna get all that heat, and you're gonna get growth. They're gonna love it.
It's simple, but you feel like a genius when you set it up. When
Right.
you turn that knob on and everything gets watered, you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
It's like Castaway. I have made fire. Like,
no, I remember when I first got. Someone was actually asking about water filters. So I'm on city water, and the water is terrible. And I actually have used a filter before. I use like on those RV filters you put on the faucet, and I have found that they don't last very long. They get clogged up super quick, and you lose a ton of pressure. So I just go with the straight city water, and I don't have that many issues. I just try to flush the line a couple times a year because you will get that sediment buildup. Make sure you're getting the black irrigation lines that's UV rated, and it should keep algae and build up as well inside the lines and stuff. And then whenever it freezes, I just literally disconnect it from the faucet, open all the valves, and when the water freezes, it contracts or expands, and when it's done, I plug it back in. Everything's good to go. I've had the same irrigation line for like 4 years, and it's just been great. It's lasted a long, long time.
I don't really have a problem replacing many things or having backup problems or, I don't have a solenoid valve. I think that's what you're probably using, Brian.
Yeah.
I just use an orbit timer, and I don't even have the one with the app. It's literally $55 every year. Now, sometimes I leave them outside in the wintertime, and then they get busted.
That's what happened to mine.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to leave them outside, but even if I leave them inside somewhere that's stable temperature, I still get some that break. It's just inevitable. But
they dry rot a little bit,
$55. Yeah, it's kind of a necessary evil, and it's not that big of an expense. But in terms of the quantity, though, of water for my 5-gallon trees in pots, I'll give them about a quarter of a gallon. When I first started, I was actually giving them like 8 ounces of water every day. So a cup, maybe even sometimes a little bit less. If you get a lot of rain, you almost never have to water. The temperatures are warmer, over 80 consistently. I'm watering every day. Temperatures in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I'm either not watering or maybe every 3 days, whatever that is. But once it's over 80, 90, they're getting about a quarter of a gallon to a half a gallon of water every day. And based on what Brian just said, is that spot spitter, whatever the emitter is that you're using, has a rating on it of gallons per hour. Then you multiply that. Probably multiply that by the time that you're doing it for, and then you end up with an amount of water. And so
Right.
that's basically it for the 5-gallon trees. You could maybe go up to a gallon if you have really, really big trees that are thirsty. You got a ton of sun. I don't even have full sun where my fig trees grow. So you could probably get away with it even more. And then, of course, I think the big deal is where you guys are, not necessarily where I'm at, but if I lived in a longer season climate with even more heat than I have, I'm watering multiple times a day. I'm not doing the deep watering thing. Some people like to do that, but especially in containers, I think you don't want to do that deep watering. In the ground, I think it's a different story. I'd rather do the deep watering, but in the container, you want to make sure it's consistent. It's always there because those containers dry out so quickly. And then, of course, for the in-ground figs, it could be up to 5 gallons depending on your tree, how big it is. But for me, in my yard, I have such heavy clay. We usually get enough rain, and I don't ever have to water. Mulch,
It's all
mulch,
water.
mulch, man. If you put
Mulch.
down mulch, you just can severely cut down on your water bill. Now, if I lived somewhere really dry, I'm going to still have to have that irrigation. In fact, I even have a plot out on the north side of my property. I've talked about this a lot on my YouTube channel. That used to have a big oak tree there. It got hit by lightning twice. We took it out. And then the soil is just different there. I don't know what it is. It's just like a sandy loam versus this heavy clay that I have. And if you have a much more well-draining or looser soil that doesn't hold on to that moisture, like clay is so thick and just holds on to so much moisture. I mean, it can rain all winter time, and I don't need to water a damn thing in the ground until like August.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, right now though, we've had a heat wave. We've had like no rain, and so even though it's almost July, there's a tree out in the front where that dry soil is, and it's starting to drop some figs. And those trees actually, if they're not watered, they're going to start losing some of those fruits, and that's the first thing to go. Once you lose the fruits, then you start losing the leaves. Then you lose the leaves, then you just have a tree that's like a cactus all wintertime or all summertime and does nothing until the next year. So, got to water it every day. When the tree is like up like this, and all of a sudden it's just down like that, and all the leaves are down like that. Not just some of the top leaves, because the top leaves aren't adjusted sometimes to the humidity. Once you change that humidity, then it goes through that period of shock. But usually the lower leaves are already adjusted. So if the whole tree just all of a sudden goes down like that, you got to get it water immediately. And if you don't, you're going to get damage on those leaves. And then you can't really recover from that. You can't.
No, they're going to have to drop those leaves.
Yeah. So that's watering 101 right there, I think.
No, like you were saying, I grow almost everything I have in containers, and especially when it's hot, you're watering. I typically water once a day, but I'm doing like a kind of heavier watering, like you were saying. But if I start to see stuff wilting and it's really, really hot, I'll either move it to the shade because it is in a container, or move it to a shadier spot, or I will give it a little bit extra when I hand water. Because even though I have 2 zones on the sprinkler, I'm still hand watering a bunch of stuff as well, like all my propagations and stuff. So if I see something struggling, I'm paying attention to everything in the backyard. And then, you don't necessarily need to fertilize your figs, but I always say, like, if you can, give it some granular. And I even do a weekly, when I do like neem oil and stuff, I do like a foliar feed with my figs as well. The neem oil, I think, helps out with that the rust a little bit. It helps with a little bit of the fungus and stuff. But I give it a little bit of foliar feeding once a week as well, with a really low dose organic fertilizer on the leaves. And I feel like it really helps bring in that crop of, especially this spring, the Brea figs have been insane.
That's great, man.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've had y'all for, we've had y'all for almost 2 hours now. We usually don't go this long, but I was like, hey, if they want to keep talking, this is great. I love this. This has been fantastic, man. Thank y'all so much for coming on. Real quick, I mean, Brian, let everybody know where they can find you, dude. What you got coming up?
So yeah, everybody, you can find me on my Instagram page, profig_. If you don't follow me, then you're missing out. I'm posting all kinds of cool videos, tips and tricks, and I'm really enjoying making the videos right now. So I'm trying to do different topics, different things. Our website is profigusa.com, and thank you for having us.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for coming on, Brian. Is it profig underscore or profig underscore underscore?
Profig underscore.
I thought it was 2 underscores for some reason. I don't know why.
Yep.
Thank you so much, dude. It's always a pleasure. It's been a fantastic podcast. Thank you so much, dude.
Yeah.
Mr. Ross Raddi, where can everybody find you? What you got coming up, dude?
Oh man, yeah, I appreciate being on here, guys. It's always good to talk about figs. It's nice meeting you too, by the way. Phil's been
Oh, it's
he's
been
been
great,
killing
dude.
it. And
Thanks, man. We
yeah,
never talked personally until really up until recently too, so it's been rad.
Yeah, man. I mean, I actually legitimately watching some of your videos, which is no. I mean, some people say they watch the videos and then they don't, but I'm actually watching them, and I actually enjoy them, which is hard for me to watch somebody talk about figs and actually and like, oh, this I can't do it. You know, like when someone's you know, like I don't know.
You're watching like, oh no, don't do that, man.
Oh,
Come on,
no.
like,
Yeah,
Oh, no,
like,
no.
yeah, so yeah, but Phil, you're killing it, man. I love the
man.
coffee in the morning. It's so chill, all that good stuff. But yeah, so if you guys can find me if you want on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Raddi. It's where I teach everybody in video format. But then I also have a blog, figboss.com, turning that information into a book, hopefully before I die at some point. And then yeah, that'll be out there for the public to see. And you know, that's kind of my passion is obviously figs, and putting that together in a book would be really, really special. So yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
No,
man.
we love getting fig enthusiasts on the podcast. We'll have to get y'all back on sometime. Especially because I know fig. I know it's called Phil Fig.
With a
I know
PH, fig with a PH.
Yeah, Phil loves to nerd out on figs sometimes, and we're not doing like a fig specific podcast. I'm like, all right, Phil, you got 10 minutes to go nuts on figs real quick. We got to get back to like regular gardening or something. So it's awesome to have like a fig centric episode. And I love doing them, and I learn something new every single time. And finding out there's so many people from around the U.S. and around the world who are just as enthusiastic about growing figs as we are is really awesome. So thank y'all so much for coming on, Mr. Fig Daddy, Mr. Phil's Figs. What do you got going on? What's got coming up, dude?
Yeah, tomorrow is my 38th birthday. So I'm getting up there now. Thanks. And then no, what I have going on? I'm going to make it out to the Ocracoke Fig Fest. It's about a 4-hour drive for me with the ferry ride out to Ocracoke. I've never been, so I'm really excited. And then in September, that's August 1st and 2nd, I think. And then September, North Carolina is having a Fig Palooza, and I forget where it is, but Malcolm Heath invited me out there, so I'm going to go check that out. And then I have Figtoberfest. Oh, and then in October. So I'm excited. I've never been to Texas outside of an airport. I've been to Texas like 20 times, but it's always been an airport. So this will be cool.
Speaking of that, well, I need to get with you so we can order a plane ticket. So we can definitely do that.
You know it.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks as always. You're my consigliere, my partner in crime. I appreciate it. My name is Destin Nowak, Texas Garden Guy. You can find me at Texas Garden Guy everywhere. I will be at Enchanted Forest on July 5th or July 6th, I think. I'll post an event thing about it, but it's going to be an evening make and take with succulents, and there's going to be a bar cart with beverages and stuff like that. So that's going to be so much fun. So thank y'all for coming on. I really appreciate it. Don't hang up, and we'll see y'all all next week.